Let's have Alexandra pay, my father announced with that familiar condescending smile, sliding the leather-bound bill folder across the table. After all, she's the one who lives in this neighborhood. The rest of my family smirked around the table at Le Chateau, the most exclusive restaurant in the city's most expensive district. They didn't know I owned not just the restaurant, but the entire historic building it occupied, along with most of the luxury properties in this area. Of course, I said quietly, reaching for my purse Hermès, though they assumed it was a knockoff. It's the least you can do, my sister Victoria chimed in, adjusting her fake Cartier bracelet. Since you insisted on meeting here. Though God knows how you afford the rent in this area on your... What exactly do you do again? Investment management, I replied, suppressing a smile. My small investment firm was actually Walker Global, one of the largest private equity companies in the world, with assets exceeding $500 billion. Investment management? My brother Richard scoffed, swirling his wine, a vintage from my private vineyard in Bordeaux. You mean like handling people's retirement accounts? Real wealth management happens at firms like mine. If only he knew that his prestigious investment bank was actually owned by one of my shell companies. I'd acquired it last year when they were on the brink of collapse, though the public announcement wasn't scheduled until next week. Speaking of real estate, my mother added, did you hear about the Walker Building acquisition? Someone bought this entire block for billions. Probably some oil sheik or tech billionaire. I glanced at my watch, a subtle Patek Philippe worth more than their combined annual salaries. The renovation plans for my building were due to be announced at 8 p.m. sharp. It was 7:58. Must be nice, Victoria sighed, picking at her Wagyu beef sourced from my cattle ranches in Japan. Having that kind of money. Not like some people who can barely afford their rent. My barely affordable rent was actually the property taxes I paid on my penthouse that occupied the top 5 floors of this building. The modest apartment, they mocked, was just the private entrance. You know, Richard leaned forward, his fake Rolex catching the light. My firm is always hiring administrative assistants. At least it would be a real job, Alex. I checked my phone, my real phone, not the decoy one they saw me use. Messages from my executive team were flooding in. Asian markets opening in 30 minutes. Middle East sovereign wealth fund transfer complete. London office awaiting renovation approval. Board members assembled for emergency meeting. Remember when Alexandra wanted to start her own company? Victoria laughed, sipping her champagne from my vineyards in France. Thank God she settled for something sensible. My sensible company had just completed the largest private acquisition in Wall Street history, though the news wouldn't break until tomorrow. The bill, madam. The waiter presented the folder with a flourish. My family's smirks widened as they saw the total, more than most people's monthly salary. It's rather expensive, my mother noted with false concern. Are you sure you can afford it, dear? Before I could respond, Marcus, the building manager, rushed to our table, clutching architectural plans. He hadn't noticed my family was present. Ms. Walker. Thank goodness you're here. The renovation plans for your building need immediate approval. The contractors are waiting to begin the $500 million upgrade to the entire block. The sound of shattering crystal pierced the silence. My mother had dropped her champagne flute. Marcus continued, oblivious to the growing tension. And the other owners in the restaurant consortium need your sign-off on the menu changes. As the majority shareholder. Marcus, I interrupted softly, I'm having dinner with my family. He finally noticed the others at the table, his face paling as he realized his mistake. I'm so sorry, Ms. Walker. I didn't realize. I'll come back. It's fine, I said, pulling out my signature black titanium credit card, the one reserved for billionaires. The bill first, then we can discuss the renovations. The waiter's eyes widened at the card. Right away, Ms. Walker. And will you be using your owner's dining room for coffee? 5 pairs of eyes snapped to my face as the truth began to dawn. Owners. My father stammered. Dining room. Victoria whispered. I smiled slightly, watching their faces as realization set in. Yes, I think we will. After all, as the building's owner, I should really show my family around. Don't you think? The sound of breaking glass came again, this time from Richard's direction as he dropped his wine glass. staring at his phone where breaking news alerts were starting to appear. Walker Global announces historic acquisition. Mystery CEO reveals $500 million urban development project. Real estate empire expands. Walker building transformation begins. But you're just... My mother's voice trailed off. Just what, Mom? Just the daughter you said would never amount to anything? Just the sister you mockingly offered secretarial work to? Just the family member you always stick with the bill because she lives in the neighborhood? Marcus reappeared with more architectural plans. Ms. Walker, your helicopter is standing by on the rooftop if you need to review the other properties tonight. And the mayor is waiting in your private boardroom to discuss the city development project. The expensive wine sat forgotten as my family stared at me, then at Marcus, then back at me in stunned silence. The architectural plans on the table showed my company's logo, a logo they'd seen countless times in the news but never connected to their struggling daughter. This is some kind of joke, Richard finally managed, his face ashen. You can't own this building. It's worth $1.2 billion actually, I finished, signing the dinner bill without glancing at the total. Though that's just the building itself. The entire block is valued at closer to $5 billion. More after the renovations. Victoria was frantically Googling on her phone, her hands shaking. Walker Global. Alexandra Walker. Net worth estimated at. Those estimates are low, I said calmly, taking a sip of water. They don't include the private holdings. Or the overseas investments. Or the cryptocurrency portfolios. Speaking of which. I turned to Richard. How's that crypto fund of yours doing? His face went pale. How do you know about your illegal cryptocurrency manipulation scheme? I pulled out my tablet, displaying a detailed financial analysis. I own 60% of the exchanges you use. Every transaction, every trade, every attempt to manipulate the market, it all crossed my desk. My mother's hand flew to her throat, clutching her pearls, bought from a jewelry chain I'd acquired last month. But your apartment, that tiny place, is the private entrance to my penthouse, I corrected. The one that occupies the top 5 floors of this building. That modest space you mocked last Christmas? It's worth more than your entire neighborhood. Through the restaurant's windows I could see news vans beginning to arrive. Someone must have leaked my presence. But you drive a Honda. Victoria blurted out, her fake designer bag purchased from one of my retail chains clutched tightly. That Honda is a prototype, I said, watching as more messages flooded my phone. The only one in existence. Their CEO gave it to me after I acquired controlling interest in their autonomous vehicle division. Would you prefer I showed you my Rolls-Royce collection? Or perhaps the private jet fleet? Marcus appeared again, looking apologetic. Ms. Walker, I hate to interrupt, but the Prime Minister of Japan is holding on line 1. Something about the Tokyo property acquisition. Tell him I'll call back in an hour, I said, not taking my eyes off my family. We're having an interesting dinner discussion. Richard was frantically trying to access his banking apps. My trading accounts, they're all frozen. I smiled slightly. Yes, I ordered that an hour ago. The SEC is particularly interested in some of your recent activities. Though they'll be even more interested in Dad's real estate schemes. My father's face went from red to white. What are you talking about? The fake property valuations? The money laundering through shell companies? The fraudulent loan applications? I pulled up another document. Did you really think you could hide those transactions from someone who owns half the banking system? Victoria tried to rally. This is ridiculous. You can't possibly own the fashion brands you pretend to afford? The stores where you buy your knockoffs? The magazines where you claim to be a successful designer? I raised an eyebrow. Actually, I do. Along with the private investigation firm that's been documenting your creative accounting practices. My phone buzzed with more breaking news alerts. Walker Global CEO revealed. Real estate empire's mystery owner. Billionaire Alexandra Walker steps into spotlight. Wall Street stunned as Walker empire expands. Marcus approached again, this time with the building's head of security. Ms. Walker, the press has gathered outside. Your security team is standing by. And the federal agents have arrived as requested. Federal agents? My mother whispered. Yes, I said, reaching into my bag, a one-of-a-kind Hermès that the designer had named after me. They're very interested in this folder. I placed a thick manila envelope on the table, watching as my family's faces went from confused to terrified as they recognized the FBI logo. Inside this folder, I continued, is evidence of every illegal transaction, every fraudulent deal, every financial crime this family has committed over the past decade. The only question is, I smiled coldly, what am I going to do with it? The sound of helicopters overhead punctuated the tense silence, news choppers circling the building as word spread about the Walker global revelation. Through the restaurant's floor-to-ceiling windows, camera flashes illuminated the growing crowd of reporters outside. But why? My mother finally managed, her perfect makeup unable to hide her growing panic. Why pretend to be nothing? Nothing. I leaned back, studying them. Like when you told me I was nothing at Victoria's wedding. Or when Richard said I'd never understand real business. Or when Dad suggested I was embarrassing the family by trying to start my own company. I pulled out 5 more envelopes, each bearing my company's seal, and placed them deliberately on the table. Inside each envelope, I continued, is your future. Your only options, actually. Choose carefully. Options. Richard's voice cracked. Option 1. Sign the enclosed documents. They detail your full cooperation with federal investigations into your various creative business practices. Return all fraudulent gains. Accept positions in one of my smaller companies, starting at entry level naturally. With strict oversight. Entry level? Victoria's voice rose to a shriek. I'm a successful designer. You're a fraud, I corrected calmly. Your designer label is a money laundering operation. Those celebrity clients. Paid actors from my entertainment division. Those glowing magazine reviews. Published in magazines I own. Even your social media followers are bots, running on servers I control. My father tried to maintain his authority. Now see here, Alexandra. No, you see here. I cut him off, pulling up more documents on my tablet. Let's talk about your real estate empire, Dad. The one you claimed was too complex for my simple mind to understand. Shall we discuss the offshore accounts? The fake property valuations? The bribes to city officials? Marcus appeared again. Ms. Walker, the board of directors has assembled in your private dining room. And the SEC chairman is asking about tomorrow's announcement. Through the windows, I could see my security team's black SUVs forming a protective perimeter around the building. More federal vehicles were arriving by the minute. You have until midnight to decide, I said, standing up. Choose wisely. Wait, my mother called out desperately. Our homes, our lives. Were built on fraud, I finished. Everything you own, everything you've bragged about, everything you've used to make others feel small. It's all going to be seized. Unless what? Victoria whispered, mascara running down her cheeks. Unless you sign these papers. Cooperate fully. Return every penny of fraudulent gains. And start over, honestly this time, under my supervision. My phone buzzed with international market alerts. Asian markets surge on Walker Global News. European exchanges prepare for historic trading day. Wall Street braces for Walker Empire expansion. Your choice is simple, I continued. Work legitimate jobs under my oversight or face federal prosecution. Either way, your empires of lies are finished. Richard was still staring at his frozen accounts. Everything. We'll lose everything. You never really had anything, I corrected. It was all built on fraud. The houses, the cars, the vacations, the social status, all of it purchased with stolen money and illegal gains. My security chief appeared at my elbow. Ms. Walker, the federal agents are ready to proceed. And the president is holding on line 1. I looked at my family one last time, these people who had spent years mocking my modest life while building their own houses of cards. Here's what happens now, I said, gathering my things. The federal agents will come in and explain your options in detail. Your accounts are frozen. Your assets are seized. Your fraudulent businesses are shut down. The only question is whether you face it alone or with my protection. Victoria was sobbing openly now. But where will we live? What will people say? Morgan Global maintains corporate housing for employees in transition, I said coolly. Small apartments but clean and safe. The kind of places you mocked me for living in. As for what people will say, I smiled slightly. I imagine they'll be too busy talking about me to notice your fall from grace. The restaurant's TVs were now showing live footage of the building, helicopters circling overhead, reporters speculating about the drama unfolding inside. One last thing, I added, reaching into my bag. I pulled out a final document thicker than the others and placed it on the table. What's this? My father asked, his hands trembling. A list of every innocent employee at your companies, from the cleaning staff to middle management. Their jobs are protected. Their pensions secured. Their futures guaranteed. I straightened my Chanel jacket. Because that's what real leaders do. They protect people even from their own family's greed. Marcus appeared one final time. Ms. Walker, your helicopter is ready on the rooftop. The board is waiting for your signature on the Tokyo acquisition. As I walked toward the private elevator, my security team falling into formation around me, I heard my mother's voice, small and broken, "Alexandra, please." I paused, looking back at the ruins of our family dinner. You know what's ironic? All those years you called me nothing, I was building something real. Something legitimate. While you were showing off borrowed money and bragging about fake success, I was creating actual value. Real jobs. True innovation. The cameras flashed as I stepped into my private elevator, reporters shouting questions, the world eager to meet the woman who had built an empire in secret. Behind me, through the restaurant's windows, I could see my family staring at their envelopes, their perfect dinner ruined by the weight of their own choices. Tomorrow the world would wake up to a new order. Walker Global would reshape industries, transform markets, redefine success. But tonight was about justice. Sweet, cold, perfectly calculated justice. And they were stuck with the bill.